Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madam President, members of the Security Council, as you just heard from the Secretary General Di Carlo, the situation in Lebanon and in the region is indeed increasingly alarming. The Israel Defense Forces ground operation in Lebanon that commenced on the 1st of October of this year, following a month-long sequence of exchange of fire across the Blue Line, are ongoing as intense air bombardment continues across the country. Much of southern Lebanon, UNIFIL's area of operation, is now uninhabited and increasingly uninhabitable. Israel's stated aim is the return of inhabitants to their northern communities after 1 year of fear, 1 year of displacement. Hezbollah continues to fire across the Blue Line and is now threatening major population centers, including Haifa and Tiberias in Israel, with increasingly high-caliber weapons. This is a clear demonstration of the presence of unauthorized armed personnel, assets and weapons south of the Litani River, in grave violation of Resolution 1701. Since the 23rd of September, with the launch of the Israel Defense Forces Operation Northern Arrows, UNIFIL has, as of 8th of October, detected 5,451 trajectories from south to north of the Blue Line and 610 air attacks by the Israeli Defense Forces. In this same period, UNIFIL has detected 1,385 trajectories from north to south. Notably, each trajectory may represent multiple projectiles, and UNIFIL cannot detect some projectiles, such as those fired by portable anti-tank launchers or light weapons. Since the 1st of October, there has been fierce clashes on the ground with at least 12 Israeli soldiers and scores of Hezbollah combatants reportedly killed. UNIFIL has observed Israeli incursions with infantry, Merkava tanks, and engineering vehicles at Marun al-Ras, Labune, and Yarun in Sector West, and near Kafr Kila, Mais al-Jabal, and Udaisa in Sector East. UNIFIL has not been able to observe all such activity, however, as I will explain later. This situation has put our peacekeepers at serious risk. Clashes in the Labune/Nakura area since the 8th of October have involved tank and small arms fire, airstrikes, Iron Dome interceptions, and multiple explosions. 2 peacekeepers were wounded when earlier today a UN post, OP-14, in UNIFIL's headquarters in Nakura was hit by tank fire. Close by, also early this morning, IDF soldiers fired on the UN position, UNP-131, from an opening in the fence made by the IDF the previous day during adjacent groundworks. Several vehicles and a communication system were damaged. Just yesterday, Israeli forces fired at cameras at the same UN position, and small arms fire hit another UN position, also near Labune, damaging lightning and a radio relay station. Until a year ago, the latter position served as a venue for UNIFIL's tripartite meetings. The UNIFIL force commander and head of mission has strongly protested these actions to the IDF. Shortly before commencing their ground operation, the Israeli Defense Forces had urged that UNIFIL peacekeepers vacate UN positions within 5 kilometers of the Blue Line, stating that this was for their safety and security. Our peacekeepers have remained in position in line with the mandate this Council has provided, while continuously reassessing the force's posture against prevailing risks. As a mitigating measure, UNIFIL had already strengthened the force protection of its positions near the Blue Line. In addition, with little movement and thus operational activity possible in the prevailing security conditions, UNIFIL had decided to reduce the footprint at the most affected UN position by 25%. By 6 October, UNIFIL had temporarily relocated 300 peacekeepers to larger bases within the area of operations, with the movement of another 200 planned depending on the prevailing security situation. The safety and security of peacekeepers is now increasingly in jeopardy. The actions outlined above go against the protections afforded to UN premises and personnel under international law. There is the further issue of military installations in the vicinity of UN positions. Previously, I have highlighted that Hezbollah activities in the vicinity of UN positions held the potential to draw return fire. Now we face a similar situation with the Israel Defense Forces installing positions directly adjacent to UN positions, a development that we strongly protest. On the 2nd of October, IDF Merkava tanks were positioned next to a UN position in the vicinity of Maroun al-Ras in Sector West, that is UN Position 652, and an assembly area constructed immediately adjacent. On the 3rd of October, UNIFIL observed an IDF tank fire over this position, and on the 7th of October, 2 IDF-controlled explosive demolition nearby resulted in damage to the UN position perimeter bastions. By 8 October, the IDF had vacated their position, while movement of IDF personnel and vehicles had been observed to continue on the adjacent road. In addition, on the 7th of October, firing by IDF tanks, which had been observed crossing the blue line near Alma al-Shahab in Sector West, damaged the external wall and bunker of a UN position, 131. The same day, minor damage was reported to a building and a UN vehicle in UNIFIL headquarters, Green Hill Camp. Also that same day, with an IDF incursion in the vicinity of Mais al-Jabal in Sector East, a UN vehicle inside a UN position was hit by indirect fire. It should be remembered that the ultimate responsibility for ensuring the safety and security of our peacekeepers lies with the actors on the ground. We have strongly protested the latest developments to the Israeli authorities and underlined the responsibility of the IDF to respect the protected status of UNIFIL and its personnel, including the inviolability of United Nations premises, and to take all necessary measures to ensure their safety and security, including to avoid positioning their troops in proximity to UNIFIL peacekeepers and premises. And finally, that this presence compromises the impartiality of UNIFIL and puts UNIFIL personnel and premises at risk of being impacted by any potential exchange of fire. Needless to say that these obligations apply to all actors on the ground. UNIFIL operational activities have virtually come to a halt since 23rd of September. Peacekeepers have been confined to their bases with significant periods of time in shelter. This severe impediment to the mission's freedom of movement within the area of operation has limited the mission's monitoring and reporting ability. The security environment has also presented challenges for the resupply of fuel, food and water for UN positions. The deconfliction of UNIFIL logistics movements remains paramount. The mission is monitoring the security and sustainability of each of its positions, especially those on the blue line, adjusting accordingly. The security situation has impacted our civilian personnel as well, with almost all international civilian personnel relocated to Beirut or out of the country. The mission has made shelter available to those national staff who are not able to relocate from the area of operations. The UNIFIL head of mission and force commander, as designated official for the South Litani sector, is coordinating closely with the special coordinator for Lebanon, who is designated official for north of the Litani River, to ensure the safety and security of all United Nations personnel in Lebanon. The Lebanese Armed Forces has also come under fire, with 3 Lebanese soldiers killed since the 30th of September. 1 UNIFIL contractor was killed on the 2nd of September. Madam President, as noted by UHD Carlo, the heavy exchanges of fire have most tragically had the greatest impact on civilians on both sides, with many casualties and hundreds of thousands displaced. UNIFIL continues to support the Lebanese authorities in protecting civilians, facilitating humanitarian missions by the Lebanese Armed Forces and Lebanese Red Cross, and offering shelter to civilians at UN positions when possible. UNIFIL's liaison and coordination team has continued its close engagement with the Lebanese Armed Forces and Israeli Defense Forces, seeking to deconflict, facilitate humanitarian missions, and avoid miscalculations. The UNIFIL head of mission and force commander, in concert with the special coordinator, is actively engaging with the parties to urge an immediate de-escalation and a return to a cessation of hostilities. I echo the recent remarks of the Secretary General and of the special coordinator. There is no military solution to this crisis. We urge the parties to return immediately to a cessation of hostilities and to take real action towards full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. We stand ready to support all efforts towards a diplomatic solution. UNIFIL is mandated to support the implementation of Resolution 1701, but we must insist that it is for the parties themselves to implement the provision of this resolution. No one will implement them in lieu of the parties. To those member states contributing troops to UNIFIL, we extend our most sincere gratitude. The continued united commitment of the true contributing countries, as well as the continued united support of this Council, is more important than ever. I express solidarity with and pride in the men and women of UNIFIL, now truly on the front lines, in endeavoring to stabilize the Blue Line and beyond. I joined the Secretary General in commending the Head of Mission and Force Commander of UNIFIL, General Haroldo Lázaro Sanz, for his leadership in these critical times.